Great. Thanks for coming. I wasn't expecting a full house, so it's fantastic. There's obviously a lot of interest in BI. My name is Stuart Macarith. I'm the GM for Data and Analytics at Datacom. I've been there for 11 years. And presenting with me is Manpreet Gill. He's one of our tech leads in the business intelligence and data warehousing team. He's been with us for 3 years. So we play with this stuff quite a lot, every day in fact. So it's quite exciting to actually present something new for a change, not just an incremental update. So hopefully it'll be exciting for you. Before we start, I just wanted to categorize BI, because everybody seems to be doing BI in some flavor, and it's quite difficult to put a container around it. What actually is this animal? So there's sort of three communities or three categories of business intelligence that we see, and Microsoft are addressing these three different areas. From the more technical BI professional who's writing reports, building cubes, bringing data together, and all the associated tools. You'll see all the tools at the bottom. They kind of go from complicated to more user-friendly, and there's a lot of them. In the middle, we have a self-service type of person. It's an analyst, a BI, business analyst, MIS person, who's happy to play in Excel, slice and dice, look for patterns, look for data, and then wants to publish a visualization of that. May drop down into some code from time to time, but ultimately they're interested in the data, not the development. And then they will deliver that to the end user, their end user, which may be their team, it may be their business, it may be a customer, for them to consume what they're producing. And the newest slot on the far right-hand side is the end user BI user. And this is sort of getting BI onto the desktop for everybody. And it's the biggest group, and it's quite populated with many products in the market. There's heaps of them. They all have different flavors of what they can and can't do. And it's important that all three of these work together in your organization. If you have just one without the other, you're not leveraging the full stack. There's a complete story here. So in order to get the most out of it, don't treat them as silos. Try and integrate them as much as you can. And we're going to look at investments sort of across the board that Microsoft are making. So before we go on, I just want to do a quick poll. Reporting services. Who has reporting services in their environment? Right, everybody. Okay. Who uses SharePoint for BI? Power View, okay, less. Who uses OLAP, so multi-dimensional cubes? Excellent. More than I thought, that's good. Tabular, okay, less. Anyone using Data Zen? One person. You should get a prize. Come get it afterwards. This is heavy. If I throw it, I'm worried what will happen. Okay, so the landscape is quite littered with lots of products, and our customers often ask us, which one should I use? There's so many of them. Should I be Power BI, Power View, Power Pivot? There's so many powers. And then there's Excel and Performance Point, right? And there's all these tools. Which ones should we be using? And our answer is kind of use all of them. The enterprise is moving into the app mentality, the app methodology. You know, you have your phone, many apps, they all do different things. Just use whichever one is suited for you. The important thing is that they all use the same data. So you have your single source of data, your single source of truth. Then your marketing department are likely to use one product. Your GMs or your board are likely to use another product. And it's okay. You don't have to pick one and stick with it. All right? Try and get into the mindset that, because they're going to continue to come. They're going to continue to evolve. There's a new version of Power BI Desktop almost every second month. Right? It's an ecosystem that's growing. So these are the 6 areas that we're going to look at briefly. This is a precursor to what's coming in SQL 2016. So it's available. You can download the CTP 2.2. And there are a number of areas that they have invested. And we're going to run through those in detail. The first is mobility. And this is actually where most of our focus is going to be today. It's been a gap in the Microsoft stack until now. Yes, there's a Power BI app, but you have to use a cloud environment for that. So you can get SharePoint to work on your mobile, but it's not quite as flashy as some of the other front-end mobile tools. So Microsoft have acquired a tool called Data Zen, and it's actually quite amazing. We've been using it at a customer. Just yesterday I was using it for a workshop, and it's amazing how far you can get modeling with it, where in the past we'd be drawing wireframes, trying to explain concepts. So it covers a unique sort of niche for us. Aspects of it is it's on-premise, so this closes that gap. If you aren't able to work in the cloud for some reason, and not everybody can, okay, then it is an server application. You install it in your environment, and it's optimized for SQL Server. It will work with other data sources, absolutely, everything that we would traditionally expect, but it's optimized for SQL Server and specifically for analysis services as well. It's quite rich and beautiful, actually. It's the nicest, snappiest environment that I've seen for a while, and it's touch-based, so you can browse on any device that you want. All the mobile platforms are supported, and that's really important. So whether you're on iOS or Android, Windows Phone, tablet, doesn't matter, they all work, and they all work in exactly the same way. And the last but not least is it's free if you have SQL Server Enterprise with software assurance. Now, most organizations will have that somewhere, and it's a cunning strategy because you get so much when you invest in SQL Server. You get, data quality, master data, integration, reporting, mobile dashboards. It just sort of all comes. You don't have to buy them separately. So it's a very good approach. So how do we get into it? What is the process? There's a publisher app. Okay, I've just got it on a tablet over there. You create your dashboard on the app, and you don't have to be connected to a data source. You can drag and drop and get the feel that you're looking for, and then you will publish that to the server, as long as you can see the server. It's not a heavyweight application. You can download it onto your phone. You can download it onto your tablet. It's quite lightweight. And you deploy it to the server, and immediately it's available for everybody who has access to that dashboard, whatever their role is. So it's Active Directory enabled, so that you get the right sort of security across the board. Right, so just quickly on the architecture, just to cover some of that. Like I said, on the right-hand side, yep, the Publisher app is a Windows Store app. So if you have Windows 10, Windows 8, download it onto your tablet or onto your PC. We've been building them on PC and tablets, and they work equally well. If you want to view them, you can also use that tool, but also you can use any of the others. So you can get your Android, your iOS, everything, including your web browser. The core component is the middle server. There's 3 parts to it. The core part does all the heavy lifting, all of the plumbing. So it's responsible for things like authentication with Active Directory, managing your hubs and containers, which you'll see in a demo just a bit later, what those are. It listens to the clients, and it serves content. Then there's a data acquisition service, and that service is, as you would expect, data source integration. So it is what will be connecting to the variety of data sources you want to plug in underneath. And you'll see we've listed 3, SQL Server, Analysis Services, and Files or Spreadsheets. We will be demoing both of those live of different data sets, which is quite a novel feature as well. And then there's a web application, and the web application basically serves the content. It's an admin sort of portal environment where you can manage the security and who can do what and who can see what. Plus you can build KPIs on the server. Okay, so with that, I thought we'd just get into the demo right away, actually. So I'll hand over to Manny.
Thanks, Stuart. Yes, can everyone hear me at the back? Yes? Cool, okay.
Push 1.
So for the demo today, what we'll be doing is we'll be creating a dashboard, a sales dashboard, and also a KPI. To do that, we'll need to use all 3 components which Stuart just discussed. So that's the DataZen server, the publisher, and the VR app. So we'll get started with the publisher. So the publisher app, we'll fire it open. And what we see here is this is actually connected to the DataZen demo server. I just want to quickly just go through some of these just to show you exactly what DataZen can offer you. And some really nice examples here. So we start off with the KPIs. So here we see a KPI group. And within this group, we have a handful of KPI tiles. Each KPI itself is built off an individual measure off from your data source. And what you can also do is, within the KPI tile itself, have a trend graph. So for example, if we take total sales, we click on that. What we see here is an activity feed. What's really nice about DataZen is when you have your KPIs, the users can actually select the KPIs and then comment on them.
That's actually a big deal because we've had that request a lot, and it's been quite hard to do natively in SharePoint to support those features. So that's quite good. Yep.
Yes. So as you see here, this is in this sample, you see users have commented on it, and every time they post a comment, it will actually log the measure, the KPI measure at that time. So what that allows for is a nice discussion to be built over a period of time. Another thing you can do here is, as you see, there's some actual dashboards as part of the activity feed. So if a user looks at the KPI and actually wants to drill down and see more details of that particular measure, they can do so by just clicking on the relevant dashboards. It saves them having to go through all the dashboard screens and find the dashboards themselves. So what we'll do, we'll select one of these dashboards here, fire it up. And what we're seeing here is a sales and profit dashboard. It's a very simple one, so it's got a few gauges on there, numbers, some indicators, and it's got a total sales amount. With DataZen, what you can also do, and it's a really nice feature, is you can actually drill down from one dashboard to another, and it's very useful. So what you see here in this total sales versus target figure is a little icon at the top. That indicates that this element has drill down enabled. So if we select that, the user can now drill down even further and see more details of this particular measure. So this dashboard here has a few filters. We've got a date filter. You see that updates the charts and the gauge here. And again, we've got the ability to drill down even further. So if the user gets to this point and says, well, I'm happy with this data, they can go away. Or if they want to drill down a particular day, for example, they can click on it, and that will go down to another dashboard, which gives them even more details. It's a pretty nice little feature to have. So what I'll do now quickly, just go through a couple of these sample dashboards. Let's look at the cascading lists. So this example is great to show you that how easy it is to actually build cascading parameters. So for anyone who's using reporting services, you know it's something that users want. So here's an example. So if we in region we select Oceania, go to sub-region, we see it's automatically filtered out the results in that filter. So we go to Australia and New Zealand.
Something else which is actually not that straightforward is getting parameters to pass context to each other.
Yes.
Right. It's quite a difficult thing to achieve.
And with this is very straightforward to do. And so we see it was filtered on countries, so New Zealand, and now we can go to New Zealand and we can see the value for that country. Very easy to do. Now that was an example of a map, and the map, a world map, it comes as a standard element within the DataZen designer. What you can also do is build custom maps, and that's using your Esri shapefiles. And here's an example of a custom map. So this is an aircraft, and here the user has the ability to click on an aircraft, a part of the aircraft, and actually see actual costs and projected costs in this dashboard. When you change the aircraft type, the map also does change. Yep. It changes the shape for that particular selection, which is really nice to have. Right. So let's actually now go and build a dashboard.
Before you do that, just I wanted to explain to you how it presents on a mobile. So if you can see the left, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see we see the KPIs first on your phone? So it's quite clever the way it arranges the information, so I can move to the dashboards. So it will, regardless of how you build it, and with your containers and hubs, it'll try and arrange it well in your user interface, but we'll see some of that as well when you build it.
Yep. So to build the dashboards, we use the publisher app, so we just simply create a new dashboard. Now we have the option of creating a dashboard based on an existing dashboard or creating one from scratch. For this demo, we'll just create one from scratch. What we presented here is just a design layout. This is the master layout, and on the left we have all the available elements for us to use, and in the middle here is our design screen. You notice there's grids here, and the reason for the grids is when you bring an element through, it will snap into place into a grid.
Can you see the grids? It's quite soft.
You can see them? Excellent. Okay. Even when you resize, if you try to resize, it will snap those into the grids. And what that means is when you design your dashboards, your end product looks very nice. It's very attractive. It is quite difficult to design a ugly looking dashboard. So I'm sure if you tried, you could. So let's just have a look at a few of these elements. So one of the most popular elements is this time navigator. This is effectively giving you time intelligence. So I know when we build our OLAP cubes, we need to use MDX to build name sets so we can enable the user to have functionality to look at year to date, last 3 months, etc. With DataZen, it actually gives you that functionality with this element, which is really, really useful. Another thing you can do here is you can actually select what ranges you want to see. So for example, here we have all last year, last 6 months, last quarter. But there are other selections which you can use. So let's say we want to include this year or year to date and today. We'll bring that through as well. Another thing it gives you is this selection pane here. And what that is it's equivalent to a date dimension. If we go to the time levels here, we can see that particular filter will drill down from year to month, but we can get it drilling down all the way down to hour if we wanted to. Some other options you have here, you have a scorecard selection, and I really like this one because what this gives you is rather than just a empty drop down or just a normal drop down, it'll give you the drop down, but for each category it will give you a status and a trend, which is really nice because if you're a user you can quickly then look at the category and say, right, I want to have a look at this one because this particular category is not doing too good. You have your normal selection list as well, so you can have a drop down, again just a normal list. And then you have different types of gauges that are available, so you can have a radial gauge, have a half a donut.
To be honest, I don't like gauges. I don't know why they... But
yeah, some people do. Yes.
Speedometer.
Yes, there's a lot of things here available, so you can have charts, bring in the chart, pie chart. You can see it's very easy just to drag and drop and put things in there. One thing you can also do is actually change the theme, the color scheme of your dashboard, and it's very easy to do that. At the moment this is set to default, but you get a few options of what other color schemes are available. So let's say we want something a little bit brighter, so we can go for orange. What that does is updates the color schemes for your charts, your graphs, your text, etc. There are other schemes available. Let's go for something a bit more masculine. Let's go for pink. Nice little pink dashboard there. What you can also do here is actually have custom branding. So you can create your own custom theme. So that includes having colors and also logos. So you can actually personalize the dashboards and have it more, for your intended audience. And we'll set this back to default. So let's actually build our dashboard that we want to use. So let's go and...
What about the mobile view?
Yes, I'll come back to that.
Okay.
So let's just start again. Just clear it so it's quicker. So for our dashboard, we want to have a sales dashboard. So we'll bring in the time navigator. Expand that. We want to have a drop-down selection list, and this is for product category. Let's just expand the time navigator. We'll bring in a world map. And let's just go back to the time navigator and bring in year to date. Last 6 months we'll deselect, and today. For the world map. So this is for each element you get properties at the bottom, and with data setting what you'll find is it's very easy to learn to use this. There's when you look at the properties, it's very self-explanatory what the property means. There's nothing hidden, nothing difficult to learn, so the learning curve here is very, very small. So let's give our world map a title. So let's give that gross profit. And we can choose what we want to see, what type of map we want to see here. So we can choose continents, countries, or we can choose a specific country. So for example, if we were to select New Zealand, so long as our underlying data has the regions, sub-regions, and suburbs of New Zealand, we can actually populate a map of New Zealand. For this demo, we'll have just the world maps, because, bring the world countries in. And as I showed earlier, you have the ability to drill through from one dashboard to another, and it's very easy to do. You've got the option of drill through target. You can either have another dashboard, or you can actually have a custom URL. For example, if you want to go from data zen to a reporting services report, you can do so, and you can pass through all your parameters very easily. For now, we won't have a drill through in this demo. What we'll add next is a chart, and in our chart we're going to have product category, sales by product category, and we're adding a couple of numbers as well. We'll have one number for customer orders and one for orders, one for customer numbers. Let's just move this along, expand our map. You can see how easy it is just to resize things and move stuff around. It's very simple. Let's give this a better title. So number of orders. Number of customers. And again, we can choose what format we want. So we don't want currency, we'll leave it as general. Same with the orders. So this is our dashboard. We can hit run preview now. And what this will do, this will fire up the dashboard. Essentially. And all our filters are working right now, so we can see that everything's working, and we can click on a country, and we can see the actual measure from that country, which is really nice. Now, if we were to publish this to the server, as Stuart said, it's available immediately on your mobile device. DataZen will try its best to optimize this to your mobile platform when you go to use it. But to ensure that the user has a real premium quality experience when browsing and using dashboards, what DataZen allows you to do is actually define the layout for tablets and phones. So if we click on phone here, what we're presented with is, again, an empty design screen. But it brings through all the elements that we picked in our master layout. So we can drag and drop these in. So we'll bring in all of the elements. Now, if you have a really busy dashboard and you don't want to include everything on the mobile platform, you can actually exclude certain elements. But for now, we'll bring in all of those. Just bring that across. Bring in our chart and our two numbers. And again, we can hit preview. And this will actually show you. So when you go into your phone, this is exactly what it would look like, and this is exactly how it would behave. So you can select your filters, you can select on a country, and you can get the measures. Really, really nice features to have. If I go back to the master view, go back to preview again, and it's question time. So I have a question, and there is a price for this question. I know there's one person here who's used DataZen, so you're not allowed to answer this question. Sorry. So I've built a dashboard here. I put my filters in. My filters all work. They update all the elements. But there's one key thing I've yet to do. Does anyone know what that is? Say that again? I haven't published it, yes? I heard someone say data. Yes. Here's a prize for you. I won't throw it either because...
I'll give it to you later.
Yes.
Come find it.
Okay. So what I have yet to do is actually define the data sources. I haven't actually pointed my dashboard to anything. What DataZen does is when you bring in your elements, it generates simulated data for you. And what that allows you to do is sit there with your user and not worry about not having access to your underlying data and actually build dashboards in front of them. It's a really nice way to actually then quickly design something and then take it away and then build the data at a later stage. So what we do, we actually go and grab the data. So let's publish this to the server first. Okay. Let's just say
connect to the local one.
Yep, I'll just save that locally for now. So I just need to connect to my server. So add new server.
All that data you saw was coming off the American sample server. That's why there was a little bit of a delay as it builds. Put my server name in, username, password. That'll connect. So that's connected to my server now. The one thing I just wanted to show you is, you can see I've connected to my local server here, but I'm still also connected to the demo server. So I've got two connections now here. So that lets me, so if you've got servers in different places or different organizations which you need to connect to, you can do so, and they're both refreshed at the same time, so you have all the content available to the user. So if you're multinational and you have a server in Europe, a server in Asia, yeah, you get a seamless experience across all of them.
Yep.
Sorry?
I'm struggling to hear you.
No. The short answer is you can't use one dashboard to connect to multiple servers.
Oh, that's right. Yes. No, you can't.
But you can have one dashboard connecting to multiple data sources.
So let's just publish this to our server now. Pick our server. We can create server groups or hubs. We've already created that now, so we'll stick to that one. So that's published to the server. So this is actually now available on the mobile device. So if Stuart and I were to try to connect to this, we would see the dashboard on our device.
We tried to, but the Ethernet and the wireless don't talk to each other,
yes.
so we can't show it. But it is
It does
there.
work, yes. So what we'll do now is we'll go into the control panel and actually build our data source. So let's log into the control panel.
So this is obviously what a BI developer would be doing.
Yes.
Beforehand, if they know the types of data sets that you want and what you want to consume, or doing it afterwards, depending on what you've discovered.
Yep. So I've logged in as this user here. When you initially set up your data in server, you need to create at least one single user and one hub. And a hub is effectively a container which holds all your dashboards, your KPIs, your user groups, your permissions, etc. And on the server itself, you can have multiple hubs. And a user can have various degrees of access to those hubs. So if they can be an owner of one hub, so they can publish and create data sources. For other hubs, they just wouldn't be visible to them.
So they could be teams or organizational or subject areas.
That's right, yes.
Yep.
So what we'll do, we'll go to our data sources. So I've got a couple of that already created, but I'll create a new one. First we select our data provider, and as you can see here, there's quite a few options here from where we can get our data source from. So we've got from SQL Server, NASA Services, Azure, SharePoint, to Web Services, and Excel. For this one, we'll select NASA Services. We'll put in our server name, catalog.
This is OLAP, multidimensional, is
That's right, yes. We can add a property in there if we wanted to. We can also add the username, so we can pass in the username through to the connection if we needed to. Okay, next. Just give it a name. And then we can actually decide who gets to see this data source. So we can either choose individual users, or we can choose groups. So at the moment, we've only got one group set up, but if you have different groups, you can actually choose who gets to see this data source.
And that will be default Active Directory if we had one.
That's
which
right.
We don't. Okay.
So we'll let everyone see that one. So we've got our data connection set up. Now we need to create data views. So we select our connection, and in here we need to create a new data view. The first thing you notice here is there's no GUI in place, so there's no ability for the user to do dragging and dropping of elements. It is a query-based designer, so we'll have to put in a query here. So I've got an MDX query which I will use.
One would imagine that would come, right? I mean, it's in the other tools,
yes.
So it won't be long.
Rumor has it that they will be addressing that. Now what you can choose here is how often this data view gets refreshed. So you can either have it a one-off load, you can choose to have it every minute, daily, hourly, or you can do it real time. And what it means by real time is that the data will not be cached on the server, on the data server. Every time this view gets used, the server will go back to the source and retrieve the data at that time. But for this demo, we'll just stick to one time. And then we also have the option of allowing to cache the data on the client side. So if all of the views in a dashboard have this option ticked, what happens is then when the user connects to the server, it will refresh the data, it will cache the data on their device, allowing them to go offline. So if they board a plane or if they lose connectivity, they still have the ability to actually browse and look at their dashboards. Go next. This should now show us a list of fields. Yep. So it gives us a list of fields, gives us display name, and it tries to detect the data type of that particular field. So we can change the date to date time. We can perhaps tidy up a few of these just to make them look a bit neater. And country, and then we'll leave the rest as they are. Go to next, and this should give us a preview of our data. We're happy with that. Click finish, and that's our data view set up. This is now ready to be used in the dashboard. I'll just show you the tabular one. Here I've just used a DAX query. Again, the same principles apply here, how often I want it refreshed, who gets to see it, etc. Now before we go and plug...
And SQL? There's a SQL one.
There's a SQL one, yeah.
Yep.
So I can... This is a very simple SQL statement. Nothing too complex. So before we go and actually plug this into our dashboard, what I would want to do is create a KPI. Now a KPI can only be created via the control panel. So there's no option at the moment to create that from the data zone publisher. To create a KPI, we need to create a new KPI group. We need to select where we're getting our data from. So we have to select the data source. So in this case, we've got the option to go through go and use a variety of different sources. So we use SQL Server. We'll put in our server name, catalog. So this is a company that many of you probably never heard of. Dozen and so we can have integrated security in here if we've got the server set up to accept that. Encrypted, give it a name, let's give it sales. We can choose a culture or region, so this just affects the currency when you go and look at your KPI, so we'll leave it as the US. Connection's fine. Again, we can choose who gets to see this KPI. For now, we'll select everyone. So that's our KPI group set up. Now we need to create the KPI. So this is the KPI design screen that you're seeing. First of all, we'll give it a name. So if this KPI will be sales for the year versus target. What we can do now is we can set our actual value of the KPI. So we can set it manually, if you want to set it manually, or you can actually execute a query. So we'll actually execute a query. So we'll put a SQL query in there. And what all this query is doing is saying, show us the total sales of the current year. We can set a goal. So if we want to compare this to a target or a goal, again, we can do a query, or we can do it manually. For now, we'll do it manually, and we'll set this to, let's do it, let's make it positive. Yay, we're up.
1%.
We're up. That's good. The status itself, we can do it query based, or we can have it manually. And all that is
the RAG indicator,
yes,
right?
That's
yeah.
it, yes. To indicate whether you're doing well or not so good. We'll
Green.
just, yes.
Must be green.
Yes, we have it as positive. And then the trend. So we don't have to have a trend, but the trend is we can show the measure over a defined period of time in a form of a trend chart. So we'll actually add one in, put a query in there. And what we want to show is the sales, total sales over the last 4 years. And it's grouped by the year. And you'll see it's updated. What's nice about this is it updates the KPI immediately with your data. We can choose the type of trend we want to see. Stick to the bar, looks nicer. And then we can choose the format, so we'll go to currency and we'll do create. That's our KPI created. What we can do now is we can also relate a dashboard to it. So as we saw earlier in the sample data, we'll actually bring in our dashboard that we've just published. So when they click on the KPI, this dashboard is available to them immediately. And that's it, that's our KPI created. So let's now go and plug in our data to our dashboard. Click on data view. We'll bring in. So what you're seeing right here now is the actual simulated data that DataZen has generated. This can be exported, so you can use this as a basis of your ETL design if need be. What we want to do is bring in data. So we've got the option of using a local Excel file or the DataZen server. So we click on the server, click on our connection and our view, import it. Let's just go through and bring the other two through. Tabular, okay. So that's all our data in. Now what we need to do is for each element we need to assign it to a data, one of the data groups. So for the time navigator, we can select one of our data. What you notice here is that the product category data set is excluded. The reason it's excluded because the time navigator only looks at data sets which has a date time column available to it. So we'll use our sales cube as our source and we'll say show us the sales amount, that's fine. For our filter, drop-down filter, we want to do it by product category. Again, we choose the key and the label. In this case, they're both the same. And then we choose which data sets this filter applies to. So we want to choose our sales cube and our gross profit.
So this is effectively doing a join between the disparate data sets.
Yes. So we select our product categories for both. Then we come on to our world map. And we select a data set and we'll go for gross profit. We want to use countries. Again, we choose a measure, gross profit. We have the option of choosing what type of aggregation you want, so summing, averaging, etc. And in our chart, we'll do it by product category. No, we don't. We want to do it sales We want to show product category, and we want to show the sales amount per product category. Just check the. And the final two numbers we'll assign is for customer orders and the actual number of customers. Run preview, and there's our dashboard. This is using our data source. The filters all work. There's actually been sales this morning, which is quite impressive.
Pre-prepared.
Of course not. Real-time data. As you see, what the great thing here is what you're seeing is we're using 3 different data sources in one dashboard. So we've got OLAP Cube, we've got a tabular model, and we've got SQL Server. And if we were to set all those to real-time, we would actually go back to the source every time and retrieve it. And the performance is pretty impressive when you do that.
Just bear in mind, this is something Power View can't do yet.
Yes.
So with Power View, your single canvas is limited to a single data source. So this is actually bringing in a real, you can do a highlight dashboard touching various aspects of your business.
Yes. Now finally, just before we wrap up the demo, we'll go to the Viewer app. There's in Viewer. Oh. We'll connect to our server. Let's grab the server name.
Click on the dashboard.
Trying to get the, here we go. Go to Viewer, put in our server name, our username, connect to it. And there's our KPI and our dashboard. So we can click on our KPI and you see the activity feed come up. We can put in some comments in there. Oh, spell check's not included.
And you can drill down.
Yeah, we can go into our dashboard. We can view the dashboard. What's also available is an activity feed for the dashboard as well. So not only just the KPI, so you can put in messages here, and that'll be posted along.
How do you see them?
The activity feed.
Yeah.
So when you're on your mobile device,
okay,
you can scroll across and you see activity, and it will show you what the activities, the messages for. So the fact that we can use different data sources in one data set, in one dashboard, and all the elements are available to us, we've got time intelligence, makes Data Center, I think, a very powerful and useful tool to have.
And we built it in 20 minutes.
Yes.
As opposed to 2 days.
Yes. Exactly.
Some of these things, yeah.
Over to Stuart. Is it easy way? I guess when you browse it, you'll find out very quickly that you.
It needs to correlate, so you need to do the joins,
yes.
And so it probably won't work without
so
those joins.
what you can also do is when you're designing it, when you go to data view, you can actually delete those simulated data sets. So then when you publish it, when you go to browse it, there'll be nothing there for you to see. So, yes.
For the map, when you bring that onto the dashboard, can you set it to a default country?
Yes, you can. So as you mean the entire world map?
Yeah, set it to say New Zealand, if you only work with New Zealand.
So you can,
We actually showed that.
yes, so you can actually select New Zealand. It will show just the New Zealand
Yep.
on the map itself, not the entire world.
Yep.
Yes.
Can you connect to SAS?
I'm not sure. I don't think there is a connection to SAS at the moment. No. Yes. Sorry, could you
A
repeat that?
KPI on a dashboard.
A KPI on a dashboard. You can't create the KPI on the dashboard itself.
Not in the same way.
Not in the same way.
Yeah.
You can mimic it. You can sort of copy it and create it using one of the elements. Yes, but not
So
not
you
the
I
way
think
we've just done it.
the element will look like a KPI, but it's not built the same way.
Yes, so it won't have the same functionality where you can click on it and have you view the activity. Yeah.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. Yes.
What we've seen.
It's per data view. It's recommended to have really no more than 100,000 rows, because then if you're caching on your client side as well, that could cause issues for the user. But there's a way of getting around that, so you can actually pass parameters through to your data view, so you can pass in dates or users to just filter down the actual data.
I mean, the reality is, I also had a question about that. You don't actually want 100 million rows coming through onto your dashboard, right? You want the query to have summarized that in the way that you want to see it. If it's MDX, it's pre-sliced. So you shouldn't need that many. Yes?
Do they support screen rotation for panelists and photos?
Yes, they would do. Yep.
Cool. We need to push on. Got 5 other subject areas to look at. Thank you, Annie. Now the other ones will be quite quick, actually.
I've just switched over.
Oh, you have.
Yes. You're gonna-
Right. So where does DataZen fit in this picture? We sort of pegged it right there. Okay. The uniqueness is that it's on premises and it's really collaboration. It fills that collaborative gap quite nicely. So if we had to summarize, it looks good. Now, admittedly, they're really bright colors, right? But you can tone them down to whatever color set that you want, and they look really understated. So if you're a Stephen Few advocate and you want shades of gray with minimalist, then really easy to do. You build up a KPI repository, which you can, it's a list of all the important measures that you want to keep track of. Really useful for dragging into other environments and other dashboards along the way. And when we start talking to customers, it always starts with KPIs. What is the question you're trying to answer here? You create it once, you can publish it to any device on every platform. It'll scale. So you saw it scaled on my phone, and it scales on this screen. It looks much the same. You can brand it, you can collaborate with it, and it doesn't cost you if you have SQL Server Enterprise with software assurance. So quite a good product, I think. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. Let's move on. So the other area of investment that Microsoft are working on is modern reporting. So we're going to switch gears a little bit to talk about reporting services. As we saw, most people use this. Does anybody know what they changed in the last version of reporting services? No. There was only one extra feature in 2014. Chrome support. Okay, so between 2012 and 2014, reporting services much the same. So they've addressed that in 2016. They've spent a lot of time looking at the aesthetics and trying to improve those reports. I mean, we often have customers who don't want reports anymore, and that's what we encourage. You can print many reports and you can have multiple pages of reports, but who is actually reading them and are they getting insights out of them? So with DataZen type of tool, you can minimize the abundance of reports, but there will always be a requirement for pixel perfect reports that are more of an operational nature, that don't require interactivity, for board reports, whatever. So they've started to address that now. So the look and feel has been improved a lot. Here's a summary of the things I'll just talk about briefly. The first and the most important thing is it now works on any device as well. So all modern browsers are supported, which is a big step, especially when they don't render quite right in some of the browsers. The parameter screen. So when you build a SSRS report, you have no control over the parameters. Okay, it's a grey, ugly bar, and you have your standard text drop-downs for your parameters. It's pretty ugly, and it's actually the entry point for your user. So what they've done is they've converted that into a canvas. So it is like the report body now. You can move your fields around. You can actually order your fields. I don't know if you right-click on your parameters, you can actually order your parameters right now. Most people don't know that, but now it's a canvas. So you can move it to the bottom, top, right, left. You can drag things around, change formatting. It's quite a big impact. Yet to see exactly what it looks like, because they actually haven't released SSDT BI edition for 2015 yet. Still waiting. They've modernized the themes as well, and that's in line with what's happening in the web, consumer web environment. The reports are becoming flatter. They're becoming more responsive. The navigation is becoming easier. There's a minimalist look and feel to them. There's unique typography. There's this new look that is working quite well. And you can do it in SSRS. So here's an example. This is one that was built by a guy called SQL Jason. And it's pretty good for reporting services. In fact, it's a few years old as well. And here's another example, similar sort of thing. I think they were trying to copy a Dundas dashboard in this particular environment. So you can do them in reporting services. You can make them look nice, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time and a lot of effort to get a nice looking report like that. We know what most of them look like. So the modern themes that they're introducing are trying to get a more modern look and feel to make this just sort of out of the box. Obviously your existing reports that you've invested in will continue to work, but you can apply new themes and get an enhanced look and feel. Also there's some new chart types, so things like this, so that top one's a sunburst. When you have a lot of data, a pie chart is hopeless. It's of no value whatsoever. So they've recognized that, and with greater data sets, they're trying to give you more information in a pie chart. The same thing with, what is that thing called? It's a tree map. You'll be familiar with that from things like Performance Point of old. So there's a few others as well, and they were allowing you to integrate with other charting tools as well, so that you can bring in other ones. So they're trying to catch up. In fact, they're trying to lead the pixel perfect look and feel. The other thing that's built in R Analytics, if you've been working in R, there's an add-in and Codeplex which you can bring into reporting services that allows you to execute R queries and bring some visualizations back. That's now built in. Haven't seen it, but it's built in. And the DPI has been improved as well for big screens. There's also one other thing with subscriptions. It's an odd thing. If you want to subscribe to a report, there's now a button on the report, and it's really easy to, instead of having to go through this funny admin console to try and get that working, it's a lot easier. So they've spent a lot of time on it. It's not been released. As I said, the DTI tools are not, the BI tools are not released yet for Visual Studio 2015, but you can use the older ones on SQL Server 2016 right away. They're not going HTML5 as yet. I think they're considering it, but there's no real reason to go that way because it's server-side rendering. So HTML5 will be good for client-side rendering. So it probably will stay as it is, but they're busy evaluating that. But there is talk of having CSS inclusion from a look and feel perspective. So that's reporting services. Long may it last. Hybrid BI. So hybrid BI is when you have an on-premises environment and a cloud environment. Now, while everything is about the cloud, I mean, Microsoft have put a lot of time and effort in getting everything into Azure, getting everything into the cloud. You can have complete end-to-end solutions, and we have customers that are completely in the cloud, not just VMs in a data center, actually cloud services. But a lot of people have a big investment in their data sets. They may have a data sovereignty issue, and so they may have to they can't let the data go out to the borders. And they want to leverage the investment they've made, so they want to have the best of both worlds. So they've invested in that. They have built a connectivity analysis services connector between your Power View and Power BI through to Tabular. It does work with OLAP, but it won't refresh, frustratingly enough. So it'll fail when you try and refresh the data. They're working on that, I believe, and that will be coming. But at the moment, you can't do OLAP directly like you could with the data connector of old. You can pin your reporting services reports into Power BI. Right, we've already seen you can link them with DataZen, but now you can leverage the stuff you've built and bring them and pin them to a dashboard in Power BI as well. So that deals with hybridization. On the enhanced analysis side, so this is a little bit more technical around the cubes or the tabular models. They've spent quite a bit of time improving Tabular, and we always knew this was going to happen. And OLAP is a very mature platform. It's been around for a while. There's a lot of features in it. Tabular is now catching up increasingly. So a big bugbear with advanced modeling has been the many-to-many relationship problem. So for example, if you have an employee and they're working on projects, when you're modeling your tabular model, you have to pick that employee is the parent of the projects. And if you want to look at a project and see all the employees on it, or product and sales, same sort of thing, you can't go the other way because it's one-to-many. So you have to pick a way in which that data is going to work. Now they've included many-to-many, so you can go both ways, which is great. The same thing with cross-dimensional filtering. For example, if I have sales and I have products, and I want to see sales by product, I can also now go into a product and see all the sales on a specific day. So I can go both ways. That's been a big gap, and it's been a frustrating gap for many people. So if you know and you like that, you'll be very happy. Time intelligence has also been improved. So in the past, as you know, like we've mentioned already, building a date dimension is mandatory, and they can be tricky if there's financial year, calendar year, and all sorts of types of hierarchies. Every time it picks up a date, it will build the date dimension for you in a table on the fly. And it'll give you a consistent experience, similar to what you've seen in DataZen. It'll give you the hierarchies. It'll all be there, so the user doesn't have to fiddle around trying to work with unwieldy dates. It happens on the fly. That's quite a useful feature as well. You can configure it and you can customize it, so you can be specific if you need to. There's a heap of new DAX functions. So I'm not sure how many people work with DAX. It's a lot easier than MDX. But it's had a lot of limitations. So if you look, you'll see there's a whole bunch of new functions that they've added. They've added them for not only maturing the model, but also it's quite chatty. So if you have a hybrid environment, there's quite a lot of chatter happening between tabular model and the Power View report. And so some of the more powerful functions reduce that chatter and make it a little bit more responsive. But obviously, having things like a date diff on tap and a group by is quite important. So it's useful that those functions are now there. They will also flow into Excel. If you have Excel vNext or Excel 2016, those functions will be available as long as you have SQL 2016. They've looked at performance. So there's certain areas of a tabular model where performance is not great. Things like unnatural hierarchies is an area where they've looked at. So the other, sorry, that's an OLAP feature. I'll come back to that. With a tabular model, unlike a cube or unlike a database where you can update an individual column or row just by querying sort of other tables, sys tables, sys rows and sys columns, it's treated as a blob. So if you add a column or you take a column away or you add a measure, it's got to deal with the whole blob in one go. They've broken that barrier down, and it's pretty much the same way as SQL, sys rows and sys columns. So changing a model is now very quick as opposed to taking a bit of time. And there's parallel partition processing. So we've had that in OLAP for a long time, and it's been quite critical as the cubes get bigger over time. That is now introduced. So you can see where this is going, right? There's a huge investment in OLAP. It's not going away. It's still extremely powerful. It's still more powerful. But tabular and the in-memory model with OLTP data sources is starting to become a serious contender for providing drag-and-drop analytics. So on the OLAP side, because it's a mature product, they actually haven't done too much. They've listened to their customers' main requests, and Netezza, the IBM data appliance, is now a source. It obviously was a big requirement from a big customer. There are some performance improvements. So the one I spoke about last, that unnatural hierarchies, which can be slow, and also distinct counts and a few other things. They've enhanced the performance of those, so you might notice that. They've also got consistency checking now on the cube. In the past, the cube was kind of a black box. Now you can actually interrogate the indexes, have a look and see what's going on, if it's corrupt or got faults. So that's been a big request that's been asked, which is useful. But that's about it for OLAP. On the self-service side, and self-service BI is SharePoint at the moment, right? Other than DataZen. So we've seen a bit of SharePoint 2015 or vNext, whatever it will be called. Some interesting things happening there. It will support, this is SQL 2016 now, it will obviously support SharePoint. You can upgrade them together, or you can upgrade SharePoint and leave yourself on the old version of SQL, or you can upgrade SQL and stay on the old version of SharePoint, which was quite hard to do in the past. So they spent a bit of time making the configuration and installation and upgrades significantly easier, which is helpful. Another irritating thing that we had to deal with was when you build a Power Pivot and you have a workbook and you publish it to SharePoint, you can't edit the damn thing. Okay, so now you can. Now you can open it and you can edit and make minor changes and modifications on the fly in SharePoint as you need to. There's, I believe, Excel Services is moving out of SharePoint and into Office Online Server. There's a little bit of information on the web, not a lot. So Office Online Server is basically, the full Office suite, which is now online, and it's a new server that's going to sit alongside SharePoint, and SharePoint will use it when it needs to deliver content from the Office applications, including Excel. And all those features of DAX, all those DAX features, the Power View, Power Pivot features, will also be provided from that server. I think I've covered that. Okay, and then lastly, let's talk about some of the rich tools. I've got 2 minutes left, so I'll rush through this really quickly. DTS is now packaged together with the SQL version. So you get BI and SQL together. Yes. Okay, it's been annoying. There's a number of other things like Azure Data Factory. You can now control from SSIS. You can call it, and vice versa inside an SSIS package. There's OData 4 connectors and a few other things. MDS has got a lot faster. So there's a lot of improvements in MDS. It was quite slow. There's Type 2 support now. There's a few, and the interface has been largely improved. You can look at that. If you download the CTP, you can see the improvements. And that basically covers the 6 areas we wanted to cover. We didn't look at Power BI because there's another session. So it hasn't happened yet. It's happening at 1:55. There's a whole session on Power BI specifically and how Microsoft use it. So I recommend you look at that. And 2 others. You've missed these, but those are the ones you've missed. So if you want to go back, if you haven't seen those, you can go and reference them later. And you've probably seen this a number of times, so I'm not going to go there, but I will end on this one, which is, please don't forget to do your eval. If there are any questions, people need to go. That's fine. If there are any questions, you can stay behind and have a chat to us or ask now.